In the time since Amazon indicated it would buy Whole Foods this past June, Loblaw Companies has announced it was shuttering 22 unprofitable stores. Sobeys laid off 800 employees across the country. Metro bumped up plans for automation, and Walmart dropped fees for customers who order groceries online. Coincidence? Let's find out. Joining us now on the shifting grocery landscape in Canada, Robin Shirk. She is Vice President, Retail and Digital Insights at Kantar Retail. Sylvain Charlebois, Professor in Food Distribution and Policy and Dean of the Faculty of Management, Dalhousie University in Halifax. And George Condon, Veteran Consulting Editor at Canadian Grocer. And it's a delight to welcome you back to our station, and you two for the first time here to TVO as well. Let's talk about, actually, George, you were here 2 years ago, weren't you?
Yeah.
I take it back.
You weren't there.
I wasn't there, which is why I didn't remember it right away. Pia Chattopadhyay, I was here.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it was fun.
I'm glad. Well, let's hope I do as good a job as she did. Here we go.
I think you will.
I appreciate the vote of confidence. Sylvain, farmers have been complaining for years that food prices are very low, too low for them, in fact.
Yes.
How does this affect the grocery business's ability to make money?
Well, things are shifting pretty rapidly. I mean, farmers are price takers, so they will always be concerned about the price they get, obviously. Now, as you get closer to the consumer, things are much more dynamic today than just 5 years ago. Grocers are going online. They're trying to extend their market with short circuits. They're going into meal kits. Metro just purchased Miss Fresh in Quebec just a few months ago. So there's lots going on. So essentially, what the supply chain is trying to do is that instead of waiting for the money to show up in the store, they have to go after the money.
Could you have imagined when you got into teaching, however many years ago that was, that people would be ordering their food online?
When you look around the world, Canada's a lagger. In Europe, in some countries, food sales online represent about 10% of the entire pie. Canada, we're barely at 3%. And so Americans are at 7%. So we're catching up. Grocers, I think, are starting to realize that you can actually make money in many different ways other than just waiting for the money to come in.
Well, let's find out where the big money is. Robin, as you look at the variety of things that grocery stores have to offer, where do they make their biggest money?
Yeah, and that will vary across some grocery stores. For Walmart, it could be their general merchandise, for instance, tends to be higher margin.
Sure.
But for a lot of stores, it could be their fresh prepared foods, some of the quick service stuff. Also their private label, that tends to be an area where you'll get greater margin as well.
Private label stuff. Can you give me some examples on that?
Sure. So for Loblaw, that'd be President's Choice. For Walmart, that'd be Great Value. But their own in-house brands. And there can be areas where they'll get a bit more margin than other items.
George, what would you add to that in terms of where they make their big money?
Produce for sure. I'm not quite sure that Robin is correct about the food from the deli, only because it's expensive. It costs to have employees put this stuff together. But the margins before they pay their wages are really, really good. But produce has been a driver for a long time in the grocery industry.
I'm delighted if we have a little feud going here already on this. Do you want to come back at that?
It's, yeah, I think he's looking at it a little bit differently than I did. I was just talking about net gross margin on that.
And that's true.
But yeah, when you talk about net costs, there's certainly some other considerations.
Who are the major players in this market right now?
Well, certainly the biggest is Loblaw. They're hand down the market leader. Once you get beyond that in grocery and food, then it would be Sobeys and Walmart, and then Metro. It's a pretty consolidated market, actually. The top players really control the industry.
What's interesting is Walmart's move. It was fourth, fifth for a while. Now it's moved into third place in Canada. It's number one in the U.S. And so you're seeing a lot of move. Costco is also doing very well in our car economy. We drive everywhere to do everything, including grocery shopping. And so they're benefiting from that as well.
Yeah, you're getting at a good point. The rise of discounters in Canada. That's really a shift.
There is one aspect of it, though, that kind of bothers me. As the industry consolidates and we just have these big players, In Canada, we're a little bit different from other countries. The big players, the Loblaws, Sobeys, Metro, they also have their wholesale divisions, which they sell to independents or franchise independents. And I can remember in the 70s, independents were a thriving group of retailers. Now, with the big guys controlling the wholesale, it's difficult for the independents to make any headway. I mean, the wholesalers control the prices that the independent retailer pays, and they also control the price that they can sell it for. So the margins are getting squeezed, and as a result, we're seeing more and more independents folding, disappearing, and that's always bad, and it does bother me, having been in the industry all these years, that we've gone from the independents basically driving the innovation to now the innovation is all with the big guys, and they're kind of slow to react.
Is that a concern for you as well?
Well, George is right. There is independent grocers are under a lot of pressure. There is some resistance in Quebec, though.
Yes.
There seems to be this joie de vivre, wanting to support the small players, family businesses. So, and I think there's always going to be a market for the mom and pop shops in food generally, because a lot of consumers will want to have that experience. And that's why Farm Boy, which is actually out of Ottawa, is doing very well. It's in the GTA now, doing very well, has 24 stores. It's expanding even more because they offer that small town feel that people want.
That certain je ne sais quoi, as you
That's
might
right,
put it.
exactly.
There we go. I mean, you're onto something there, because I remember, we're here at Yonge and Eglinton, and across the road was a Dominion stores until, I guess, a few years ago, and then it just disappeared, kind of without a peep. Now, is Nob Hill Farm still around? I don't even know.
No. Well, the last time I was on this program, I was asked what's been the major change in the number of chains, and I was trying to think back, and I seem to remember 35 chains of grocers.
When?
Around 1965.
Huh. Okay.
And now, basically, you've got these four guys, that we just mentioned. But the interesting thing is, on Sylvain's point, some of the independents, a few of them, have grown by doing things really, really uniquely, and that's why Farm Boy and Longo's are successful, because they've been able to go beyond the one or two store situation, so they have a number of stores, which increases their buying power, and they're more able to compete against the big guys.
And yet you still feel like you're shopping at a family business.
And you are.
Yeah.
And you are. That's the thing. You are shopping at a family business.
The other segment that is growing a lot, and some of these chains like Longo Brothers and Farm Boy are capitalizing on, is the whole segment of ready-to-eat products.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure if you noticed last time we went to a grocery store, but that counter is expanding almost every week. Yeah. Margins are much higher, and so they process foods, they prepare sandwiches, salads, everything you need to eat on the go, because we eat a lot on the go.
We sure do. Well, here's the bottom. Let me ask you about one of the bottom lines here. As George indicated, we went from dozens of smaller businesses today to a small handful that basically control the whole thing. Are we as consumers better off for this kind of consolidation?
Depends on how you look at it. In one way, you do have some national players that are very strong and can compete and be very efficient. So that gives them the resources to be able to invest in things like e-commerce or click and collect, for instance.
So more choice for us then.
So in some ways, it means they have the ability to invest in new services. But to your point, it could limit the types of products you have in the store, potentially. So yeah, I think it depends on how you view it. But the other type of independent I see doing really well is also the ethnic grocers.
Yep.
Right.
The other side of the differentiated coin.
A&P around anymore?
That's a good question.
Long gone? A&P, I don't see those names out there anymore.
I'll go on a limb here, but I've always seen the grocery business in Canada as being quite conservative and not very good at innovating. And that's why you're seeing these external disruptors coming in and start to shake things around, like Amazon, Walmart, and Costco. They're doing very well. So grocers are forced to look at meal kits. They're forced to look at how they're servicing their customers. The online business also is brewing. And so when it comes to products, I think Robin is right. It really, are consumers better served? It depends how you see it, really. On pricing, without a doubt in my mind, Canadians actually do have access to a very affordable food basket overall compared to other countries around the world.
Who are, you've pointed out, we've got Metro here, some of the other big American ones are here as well, Loblaw, of course, number one. Who are the major American players that we should know about?
So in grocery, the number one hands down supermarket in the U.S. is Walmart. They are a grocer first and foremost.
That's funny. We don't think of them that way, though, do we?
Yeah. Well, it's the expansion of the supercenter. The majority of what that box sells is food and consumables. After that, it's Kroger, and then it really does fragment. The U.S. grocery market as a whole is very regional, very fragmented. So it does create a bit of a different sales environment there, and just different conditions overall.
It looks a lot more like Europe, really, because Europe is a very regionalized food economy. America looks a little bit like that, but Canada is really, I'm afraid to say, it's an oligopoly at the top, really.
An oligopoly?
Well,
A small handful of...
with a minuscule O. Yeah, because we want to be careful here, but generally speaking, you really have a few players controlling what Canadians are actually eating.
Well, let's talk about a couple of those big players right now. Amazon and Walmart we'll talk about in a bit, but I want to focus in on some of the news that we highlighted in the introduction, where you've got Loblaw shutting down 22 stores, you've got Sobeys laying off 800 people. George, help us understand, is this a sign that the grocery business is faltering in Canada?
Oh no, it's not faltering, but it's certainly attempting to keep up with the latest trends. I think that when Amazon bought Whole Foods, it seemed to send a shiver throughout the Canadian grocery industry. I'm not too sure why, because Whole Foods was not a well-priced supermarket. I mean, the things were more expensive there, and so the worry wasn't that the prices might go down to compete with the Canadian grocery industry. I think the worry was Amazon is so good at home delivery and fast delivery and that kind of stuff that shook up a number of players in the Canadian grocery industry.
They wondered how this was going to shake up the marketplace.
Yeah, and they're wondering now. They all are investigating things like online shopping, home delivery. They're all investigating it, but right now the kind of the preferred method is click and collect, which means you order and then you go and get it from a source.
But you have to get it in that case.
You have to get it, yeah. But home delivery, I think, especially if you look at Korea and some of the other countries in Europe, I mean, it's very, very common, and not so much here. Although I must say, I just tried one of the new players about 2 weeks ago.
Which one?
Instabuggy. They say they can deliver at grocery store prices within an hour if you want it.
And did they?
I didn't ask them to deliver within an hour, but I asked them to deliver within 2 hours, and they did. They did, and it was really good. The only thing is, it's a bit expensive. But I ordered bananas and some other produce. It was absolutely perfect, And I have a feeling that the price to deliver to your home, it may be a bit high now, but people will be willing to pay it to get
those 2 hours of their day back.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, price of convenience.
And I think that's coming, and that's what has bothered a lot of the big grocers in Canada. Is how do we compete in this industry?
Robin, let me follow up with you on that, because if I were reading headlines about any other industry that said we're closing down all these stores and we're firing all these people, I'd say this is an industry in trouble. Do you come to that conclusion?
I think it's a highly competitive industry, and it is a relatively slow growth environment for these grocers. They're they're posting 1% sales growth, for instance. Like not exactly
Robust.
rolling times.
Yeah.
So I understand if it's hard to drive sales growth, you focus more on operational efficiencies. And I think that's what they're doing. They're trying to streamline. And Loblaw always closes some stores. I think the year before they closed about a dozen stores as well. So this isn't too unusual for them. They'll open stores, they'll close some stores.
That's part of the churn.
Yeah,
of doing
exactly.
business.
So I wouldn't focus too much on that number per se. I think really where they're facing some pressure is where you talked about. It's the new competitors, whether that's Costco or Amazon, and realizing they're competing for that grocery wallet across a larger array of new entrants.
And there's another group of competitors that have come along. They're specialty retailers that have food. For instance, I think there's one called Healthy Planet here, you know, and there's about 8 or 9 stores or 6 or 7 stores. And, you know, they sell vitamins and muscle building stuff and everything else, but they have quite a line of grocery products. And stores like that differentiate themselves from a supermarket, they are beginning to do very, very well. And our tracking shows that specialty food stores are growing at least 3 times the rate that the supermarket industry is growing.
How do you, when you look at the same kind of facts that we've been analyzing here so far, do you see an industry that is in some difficulty as a result of the changes?
No, I come to the same conclusion as Robin and George. I actually do think, I would go even further though, I actually do think they're trying to make space for new talent. Grocers are traditionalists, and so they have a mindset, but when you're up against a company that doesn't really need to sell food to make a profit, Amazon, you need a different people who actually think differently about the consumer. Now, Robin is mentioning margins of about 1%. It's actually anywhere between 0.5 to 1% these days. Meanwhile, in the food service, it's anywhere between 3 to 4% growth every year. So you're seeing food retailing trying to convert towards food service slowly through ready-to-eat products, meal kits, etc.
I got to follow up on one thing here, because you said they're looking for new talent.
Yes.
But Sobeys is firing 800 people.
Yes.
So you got
Across the country.
to fire people to hire people?
Well, people that actually think differently is something that companies need. And so Loblaw actually had to let go 500 people a few weeks ago, Sobeys 800, and Metro also did the same thing a few weeks ago, 250. Within 2 weeks, it's almost like it's like an orchestra. It's your turn, and then everyone is realigning their business model at the same time.
But is the notion that those hundreds who were laid off don't have the skills that this marketplace requires, whereas presumably the new people they hire will? Is that the thinking?
That's what I'm speculating. I'm dean of the faculty, and when I talk to companies, they're looking at graduates with some knowledge in data science and data analytics, and that's someone like Robin would fit in quite nicely.
You looking to make a move?
Don't ask me these questions.
Leave your resume at the door if you want. If we're looking at
You know, you're going to get me in trouble.
if that's the case, if we're looking at sort of a new frontier for the grocery business and new skills are going to be needed, can you just put a little more meat on that bone there? What kind of skills are the jobs of the future going to entail?
I think you started to get at it a bit, the analytical skills, the ability to take loyalty card data and really mine it to hone offers, to hone the store, hone the selection. That is a new type of skill set than some of these retailers are used to having. The other piece too is just the e-commerce side, digital marketing. How do I connect in this new media through a mobile device instead of through the flyer, which I'm used to using? So there are some new skill sets. I think the real question is, will it be 800 new jobs to the 800 lost? I don't think it will be. But to your point, I do think there will be some new openings. So.
Selling to a consumer online is just a different kettle of fish. A consumer in a store is less rational, less informed, generally speaking.
More emotional?
Oh, yes, absolutely. And you have many senses to influence behavior, lights, smells, but in front of a screen. How do you build a business based on impulse buying when you're in front of a screen?
Interesting.
It's difficult.
The new people they hire, are they going to know the difference between iceberg lettuce, head lettuce, Andy Boy lettuce, romaine lettuce? Doesn't sound like that's part of the job description.
It mattered for the last 100 years. It will matter less moving forward, probably.
That sounds kind of crazy, but
It's just a product.
That's the way it's going.
Yeah.
Fascinating. Okay, live and learn here. Let's go back to June. Amazon announced they were going to buy Whole Foods. A lot of money, eh? What was that? What was the nut on that?
13, 14 billion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just about
13,
US.
$14 billion.
Yeah.
Okay, at first, a lot of the traditional grocer stocks started to tumble because everybody was afraid of what the Amazon entry into the marketplace might mean. They, I gather, quickly came back because the signal that Amazon was sending was, we actually believe in bricks and mortar stores to do our business. Do you have any sense of how this all works out in the mix? Whether they ought to be more scared or more encouraged by Amazon's reaction?
I should say no, I have no idea. But I don't really think that the grocers need to be terrified of it. I think for a while they were worried that maybe the prices would be lower, and then that would be their major competition. But it's very, very difficult to sell lower than the discount stores we already have. So the real problem is the delivery mechanism, you know. And like Sylvain said, Amazon doesn't need food to make any money, and grocers need food to make money.
Okay, but here's something I don't get. I get if you're going to order a book from Amazon, they got the whole situation, they got the whole system in place so they can get it and dump it off of your mailbox. You cannot put bananas in a mailbox. And sometimes if you're going to deliver an apartment building, you actually got to go up 8 stories and knock on the right door. So how's all this going to work itself out?
They're already experimenting with home delivery systems. They're like third-party companies that are prepared to get the groceries and deliver it to you, or to deliver it to a central location where you can go pick it up. Huh. They're experimenting with that. I don't think they've latched on to which one they want, but you're right. You don't deliver bananas to a mailbox. Mm-hmm. But I think if anybody can find a solution, it's going to be Amazon. You know,
Amazon is delivering food up north, which is something government programs have failed to do.
How far north are we talking?
Very far north, Iqaluit and Nunavut. So yeah, very far north, where cucumbers are $10 and a very expensive produce. Amazon, with their Prime model, can do a lot. Can serve a huge market very efficiently. It's on execution that they do very well.
Yeah, I think the piece to keep in mind too is they've been testing Amazon Fresh for a decade now. Yeah. So this isn't actually something that's that new for them. They've been experimenting for quite a while. What they needed Whole Foods for was for the brand credibility and the broader capability and just, to your point, picking the right lettuce and these kinds of things. But they have been working on it for a while. So
you pay $13 billion for brand credibility, eh?
Credibility and capability. Cold storage, being able to move this around at scale.
The supply chain around organics is critical. Procurement, I mean, Walmart learned it the hard way a few years back when they announced that they were going gangbusters around organics, and they failed to deliver on many categories. Well, buying Whole Foods, you got the machine right there, ready to go. And that really scared the markets, really. And that's probably why you saw stocks tumble a little bit when it was acquired.
Can I ask you to pick up on something that Sylvain said a little while ago, that we are sort of laggards in this game?
Yeah.
Europe's been into this certainly well ahead of we have, the United States obviously. Mm-hmm. Why do you suspect it has taken Canada in general, but in fact I guess the whole continent, longer to get into this game than elsewhere?
Yeah, so the reasons for the US and Canada are a bit different. In the US, I mentioned that it's pretty fragmented in the grocery space. Mm-hmm. So you had a lot of regional players that just couldn't afford to invest in e-commerce. And that meant the national players didn't have to, didn't feel that competitive pressure to move that quickly as well. In Canada, you could argue that they didn't feel the consumer pressure. And it's also a smaller country. So for the big players to make this investment, it's they need more people adopting it because there's just
and the
other
thing
audience.
is they were successful
Yeah,
for years.
Well
For years and years and years, the big grocers in Canada have been successful. If you consider like 1% profit margin success, but of course grocers have always considered 1% to be successful. And so I don't think they ever noticed the need to change their way until just recently with these various happenings that we're talking about. That's caused
that
them.
woke everybody up.
I think it did. Yeah. Now we have to wait and see what they do about it.
Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was going to say, the other piece I would add, too, is who's demanding this stuff. And it's that Generation Y crowd. It's the under 35s. They're now having kids, and they're used to being able to just get things on demand. So I think the consumers of 10 years ago were a little bit less focused on this. And
Are they the ones that take pictures of their dinner and upload it to Instagram every day?
yeah,
That's
pretty much.
a lot of people.
That's them.
But also,
But
there's
it's-
going to be 8 million people in Canada over 65 in a few years.
That's true.
And so when you're looking for convenience, home delivery could come in handy. So
Is there a sort of Canadian nationalist part of you that rues the fact that it took a couple of big American companies to come up here and sort of wake us up in this regard?
it's competition, I would say. I mean, you can argue, essentially, Amazon is doing to the grocery business in Canada what Apple did to the music business a few years ago. You know, disrupting an industry from the outside. And they're going to learn, they're going to grow. I actually am convinced that grocers in Canada will be successful. It's going to be rough for a while.
Does the Canadian nationalist in you, George, any upset about the fact that the Americans are sort of showing us how to do it?
No, because as long as someone's doing it better than we are, we have to catch up. But I still got to go back to my independent theme from earlier. What happens when little Miss Pagan goes to a grocery store and she wants to have a particular biscuit? And she always went to her independent store, and the independent store always sourced that biscuit for her. Now that independent store is now part of the large conglomerate, and that biscuit isn't on the order form, what's she going to do? And that bothers me. It bothers me because there used to be a system whereby you knew your local grocer was going to get stuff for you, but now your local grocer is probably tied into Loblaw, Sobeys, or Metro, and they can only get what those guys want you to get. And that bothers me. But to your point, I think if there's some new method to improve business, like we see from the States, Canadians will have to respond. They will have to.
Robin, that's a real thing, what he just said. On the one hand, yes, we love the efficiency, we love the added choice, we love all the innovation that's been brought to bear. But I wonder whether something is lost, that nostalgic feeling of dealing with an independent grocer that you actually knew. Yeah. You knew their name, you saw them every week. Yeah. Are those days about to disappear?
I think that sounds a little bit doom and gloom. I don't think we're quite at that
That's
level.
why I asked the question. I didn't say it.
No, it's a good question. I do think it ebbs and flows a little. I think if consumers, if they really do miss that, I do think we vote with our feet, and we'll pick, we'll go to the Fiesta Farms or the Longos or the places where we do get that feeling. Yeah. And I think that would force a bit of change. But
what's your take on that?
Last time I went to St. Jacob Market or St. Lawrence Market, I
you
wasn't
go.
alone. There's still a lot of people looking
true.
for that experience, and I don't think that's going to go away anytime soon.
There's something about that kind of familiarity that we crave, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's food.
Yeah.
Through food, you exchange ideas, cultures, values. It can't go away. It will have to. It will continue. Of course, it will be transferred in many different ways, but that connection with food systems will remain, no matter what.
How long have you been covering this sector for?
40 years.
40 years. 40. Okay, when we reconvene this discussion 10 years from now, and you've been covering it for 50 years, no, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. What do you think we're going to be talking about then?
I think we'll be talking about the same thing. We're going to be talking about creative ways to deliver food to the customer, and we probably haven't even thought of which ways it's going to be. But I think it'll be a very similar discussion, but with different answers. Because progress is progress. And yeah, the Canadian grocery industry may have been a bit slow, but now that they've seen the wake-up call, they're going to start to catch up. And if they don't, they're going to go by the wayside. I mean, look at Japan. They've had grocery delivery to your home for the last 5 years. And so whatever it is, we'll be talking about it in the same way.
I think I know. I have one word for you. Drones.
Well, it could be part of it. Yeah, it could be part. If we can actually get our policy framework correctly, we could actually see drones deliver food products across the country. given the distance that we have, I mean, it's a huge country.
That will be a brave new world.
Absolutely.
Interesting. Can I thank Sylvain Charlebois, the professor in food distribution and policy, Dean of Faculty of Management, Dalhousie University, for making the trek up from Halifax. Thanks so much.
My pleasure.
Sylvain, good to see you again. Robin Shirk, VP Retail and Digital Insights at Kantar Retail, and George Condon, the consulting editor at Canadian Grocer, only, I say, covering this sector for 4 decades. Thanks so much, everybody. Appreciate it.
Help TVO create a better world through the power of learning. Visit TVO.org and make a tax-deductible donation today.